Admiral Tae-Young Park stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the stars ahead. He had been in space for 30 years, fighting battles and keeping peace across the galaxy. His gray hair and tired eyes told the story of a man who had seen too much war. But today felt different. Today felt wrong. The message from the Galactic Council had arrived 3 hours ago. It was a direct order to attack a pirate base on the moon called Taros 7. The pirates were supposedly attacking supply ships and killing innocent traders. The Council wanted them destroyed. It seemed like a simple mission. Admiral Park had done hundreds of missions like this before, but Lieutenant Bora Yoon had found something strange. She was the youngest officer on the ship, only 29 years old, but she was incredibly smart. She could remember everything she read and saw patterns that others missed. 2 hours ago, she had run into the bridge with her tablet in hand and fear in her eyes. "Admiral, you need to see this," she had said, her voice shaking. "I intercepted coded messages from the Council. Taros 7 is not a pirate base. It is a mining colony. There are 2,000 Drenari families living there. They are peaceful people. The Council lied to us." Admiral Park had felt his blood turn cold. He looked at the data on her tablet. The evidence was clear. The Council had sent false information to the human fleet. They wanted humans to attack innocent people. They wanted to make humans look like monsters, but why? Captain Da-Yoon Choi entered the bridge at that moment. She was the commander of the flagship Indomitable, a powerful warship built by human engineers. She was 38 years old and had fought in every major battle of the last 10 years. Her people trusted her completely. She looked at the Admiral and immediately knew something was wrong. "What is it, sir?" she asked. "We have been set up," Admiral Park said quietly. "The Council wants us to commit a war crime. They want us to kill innocent civilians." Captain Choi's face went pale. Commander Hyun-Woo Kang, the tactical officer, stepped forward. He was a brilliant strategist who had saved the fleet many times with his quick thinking. He looked at the data and cursed under his breath. "This is a trap," Commander Kang said. "They want to destroy our reputation. If we attack Taros 7, the whole galaxy will hate us. We will be branded as killers. The Council can then remove Earth from the Alliance and take our territory." Admiral Park made his decision quickly. "All ships cancel the attack. We are not going to Taros 7. We are going to Valdris Prime instead. We need to face the Council directly." The fleet changed course. The journey to Valdris Prime took 6 hours. During that time, Ambassador Ji Hiro prepared her case. She was Earth's representative on the Council, a skilled diplomat who had spent years building relationships with alien species. She was 47 years old and had worked hard to earn respect for humanity. Now she would need every bit of that respect to survive what was coming. When the human fleet arrived at Valdris Prime, the massive space station looked peaceful. Ships from 17 different species were docked there. The station orbited a neutron star and served as the center of galactic government. Ambassador Rowe requested an emergency council session. The request was granted, but she could hear the coldness in their voices. The council chamber was a huge circular room with seats for all the member species. High Counselor Vekroth sat in the center. He was a Threxian, a species that had been in space for thousands of years. The Threxians believed they were superior to younger species like humans. Vekroth had never liked humans. He thought they were too aggressive and too unpredictable. Ambassador Rowe walked to the center of the chamber. She activated a holographic display and showed the intercepted messages. The evidence was undeniable. The Council had deliberately given false intelligence to the human fleet. They had tried to trick humans into attacking innocent civilians. "This is a conspiracy," Ambassador Rowe said, her voice strong and clear. "The Council has violated its own laws. You tried to manipulate Earth into committing atrocities. We demand an explanation and an apology." The chamber fell silent. Then High Counselor Vekroth spoke. His voice was smooth and dangerous. "These messages are fake," he said. "Humanity has created false evidence to avoid following Council orders. This is treason. The human fleet refused a direct military command. That is a violation of the Treaty of Unity." Ambassador Rowe could not believe what she was hearing. "You are lying. The evidence is real. Any technical analysis will prove it." "Enough," Vekroth said. "The Council has made its decision. Earth is expelled from the Galactic Council effective immediately. All human military forces are declared hostile. Any human ship found in Council space will be destroyed. All human personnel at this station are now prisoners of war." The other Council members stayed silent. Some looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up. They had been part of the conspiracy from the beginning. Or they were too afraid to oppose Vekroth. Ambassador Rowe felt her heart pounding. "You cannot do this. You are making a terrible mistake." "Guards, arrest her," Vekroth ordered. Armed soldiers moved toward Ambassador Rowe, but before they could reach her, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Council security forces were trying to seize the human ships docked at the station, but the human crews had been listening to the council session. They knew what was coming. They fought back. The docking bay erupted in gunfire. Captain Choi, still aboard the Indomitable in orbit, received reports from the station. 17 human personnel were trapped and surrounded. 3 human ships managed to break free and escape, but the rest were captured. Admiral Park received all the information within minutes. His face became hard as stone. He had served the Council faithfully for decades. He had believed in the Alliance. He had believed in peace and cooperation. Now he knew the truth. The Council had betrayed humanity from the start. He opened a communication channel to all human ships across the galaxy. 47 vessels answered his call. They were scattered across Council space, far from home, surrounded by enemies. They needed orders. They needed leadership. Admiral Park gave them both. "This is Admiral Tae-Young Park to all human vessels," he said. His voice was calm but filled with authority. "The Galactic Council has expelled Earth and declared war on humanity. We have been betrayed by those we called allies. We are on our own now. All ships will execute Protocol Sigma 9. Return to human space by any means necessary. Avoid engagement when possible. Fight when you must. Show no mercy to those who show none to you." He paused, then added the words that would change everything. "We stand alone now. Show them what that means." Protocol Sigma 9 was humanity's emergency war plan. It meant complete severance from the Council. It meant unrestricted warfare. It meant survival at any cost. Every human captain knew what it meant. The Council had started this war. Now humanity would finish it. Back on Earth, news of the betrayal arrived within hours. The government declared a state of emergency. President Haewon-song addressed the planet. She was a strong leader who had brought prosperity to Earth. But now she faced the greatest crisis in human history. "Citizens of Earth," she said, her voice broadcasting to 14 billion people, "we have been betrayed by the Galactic Council. They have declared war on humanity. They believe we are weak. They believe we will surrender. They are wrong. We will mobilize every resource. We will defend our home. We will protect our people. And we will show the galaxy that humanity does not break." Across Earth and its colonies, people reacted with shock, then anger, then determination. Shipyards went into full production. Factories switched to making weapons and ammunition. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Humanity was going to war and nothing would stop them. In space, the human fleet began its long journey home. They were being hunted by Council warships. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Many would not make it back, but they would fight every step of the way. The Council had made one critical mistake. They had pushed humanity into a corner, and cornered humans were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The human fleet ran through space like hunted animals. 47 ships were scattered across 5 different star systems, all trying to reach Earth. Behind them, Council warships followed like wolves. The Threxian Armada was the largest and most aggressive. They had 200 ships dedicated to hunting down the humans. Captain Da-eun Choi stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched her sensor screen. 6 Threxian cruisers were closing in from behind. Her ship was damaged from the escape at Valdris Prime. Her shields were at 60%. Her weapons were low on ammunition. She had 3 destroyers with her, all in similar condition. They were protecting 12 other human ships that had no weapons at all. "Commander Kang, what are our options?" she asked. Commander Hyun-woo Kang studied his tactical display. The math was simple and terrible. If they ran, the Threxians would catch the slower ships and destroy them. If they fought, they would probably die. But at least they could buy time for the others to escape. "We need to make a stand here," Kang said. "At the Helios Gate jump point. The civilian ships can jump to the next system while we hold the enemy back." Captain Choi nodded. She had expected this answer. "How long do we need to hold?" 30 minutes for the jump drives to charge. Maybe another hour to make sure they get away safely. "Then that is what we will do," Captain Choi said. She opened a channel to the other ships. All civilian vessels proceed to Helios Gate and prepare for jump. Indomitable and escort destroyers will cover your retreat. Make every second count." The civilian ships moved forward. The Indomitable and the 3 destroyers turned to face the enemy. The Threxian cruisers came on fast and confident. They had superior numbers and firepower. They expected an easy victory. The battle began badly for the humans. The Threxian ships fired first, launching missiles and energy beams. One destroyer took a direct hit and exploded immediately. The Indomitable's shields flared as multiple impacts struck the hull, but Captain Choi did not retreat. "Return fire," she ordered. "Target their engines and weapon systems. We do not need to destroy them. We just need to slow them down." Commander Kang had a different idea. While the Indomitable fought directly, he used the ship's electronic warfare systems to hack into the Threxian communications network. It was risky. If the enemy detected the intrusion, they could trace it back and overload the Indomitable's computers. But if it worked, it could change everything. It worked. Within 5 minutes, Kang had broken through their encryption. He began sending false orders to the Threxian ships. 3 cruisers suddenly turned away, believing they had been ordered to pursue a different target. 2 others slowed down, thinking they were supposed to form a defensive perimeter. The Threxian formation fell apart. "That bought us time," Kang said with a tight smile. The battle continued for 14 hours. It was brutal and exhausting. Another destroyer was destroyed. The 3rd one was crippled and had to be abandoned. The Indomitable took damage to every major system. Hull breaches killed 17 crew members. The ship's reactor was running at dangerous temperatures, but they held the line. When it was over, 8 Threxian cruisers were destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships retreated, unwilling to face the damaged but still deadly Indomitable. Captain Choi sat in her command chair covered in sweat and ash. Her ship was barely functioning, but the civilian vessels had escaped. The mission was a success. "Get us out of here," she said quietly. "Follow the others home." While Captain Choi fought at Helios Gate, Earth was transforming. The declaration of war had shocked the planet, but it had also awakened something deep in human nature. People who had lived in peace for decades suddenly remembered how to fight. The shipyards around Earth, Mars, and Europa worked without stopping. Engineers designed new weapons based on what they had learned from the Council. But they added human innovations that the aliens had never imagined. Human AI systems were faster and more creative. Human engines were more efficient. Human weapons were more destructive. Scientists in underground laboratories developed something remarkable. They called it the Ghost Drive. It was a stealth system that bent light and radiation around a ship, making it invisible to sensors. The technology was experimental and dangerous. Early tests had destroyed 3 prototype ships. But when it worked perfectly. A ship with a ghost drive could move through enemy space unseen. President Haiwan Song visited the shipyards personally. She walked through the construction bays and talked to the workers. She thanked them for their service. She told them that humanity's survival depended on their efforts. The workers responded by increasing production. Ships that normally took 6 months to build were completed in 6 weeks. 3 months after the betrayal, Admiral Tae-young Park returned to Earth. His fleet had lost 12 ships during the retreat. Thousands of crew members were dead or missing. But the majority had made it home. When the battered warships entered orbit around Earth, the entire planet celebrated. News broadcasts showed the damaged vessels arriving. People cried and cheered. These ships represented humanity's defiance. Admiral Park was immediately promoted. He became Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces. He now had complete authority over all military operations. His first meeting with President Song lasted 8 hours. They discussed strategy, resources, and the harsh reality of their situation. "We cannot match the Council's numbers," Admiral Park said bluntly. "They have thousands of ships. We have maybe 200 combat-ready vessels with more under construction. In a direct war, we lose." "Then we do not fight a direct war," President Song replied. "We fight smart. We use our advantages. What can we do that they cannot?" Admiral Park thought for a moment. "We adapt faster. We innovate faster. We take risks they would never take. And we fight with everything we have because we have nowhere to retreat." "Then that is our strategy," the President said. "We turn our disadvantages into strengths." Admiral Park began implementing his plan immediately. He established defensive positions around 20 human star systems. Each system received Guardian-class defense platforms. These platforms were massive space stations covered in weapons. They turned every human colony into a fortress. Any Council fleet trying to attack would face heavy resistance. But defense was not enough. Admiral Park knew that winning a war required offense. He created small strike groups designed to attack Council supply lines and infrastructure. These groups would use the new Ghost Drive ships to move unseen through enemy territory. They would strike fast and disappear before the enemy could respond. While Admiral Park organized the military, Lieutenant Bora Yoon worked on intelligence. She coordinated with human agents who had been living in Council space for years. These agents provided critical information about enemy movements, political divisions, and military weaknesses. Yoon discovered that not all Council species supported the war. Some had opposed the betrayal but were too afraid to speak up. Then came the news that changed everything. High Counselor Vekroth ordered an attack on New Horizon, a human colony world. The attack was meant to break human morale. 50 Threxian warships bombarded the planet from orbit. They targeted cities, farms, and industrial centers. Over 400,000 civilians died in a single day. The survivors transmitted video of the destruction. The images were horrifying. Buildings collapsed. Fires burned across entire continents. Children cried for their parents. The elderly wandered through ruins. The Council tried to claim it was a military target, but everyone could see the truth. This was murder. When Earth received the news, rage swept across the planet. The attack on New Horizon unified humanity in a way nothing else could. People who had been uncertain about the war now demanded revenge. Recruitment centers were overwhelmed with volunteers. Donations to the war effort increased dramatically. New Horizon became a rallying cry. Captain Choi, recovered from her injuries at Helios Gate, watched the footage of New Horizon. She had friends on that colony. She had visited there twice. Now it was devastated. She walked into Admiral Park's office and made a simple request. "Give me a strike group and the new Ghost Drive ships," she said. "Let me hit them back." Admiral Park looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Operation Retribution is approved. Choose your target. Choose your team. Make them pay for what they did." Captain Choi smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been pushed too far and was finally pushing back. She already knew her target. The Threxian shipyards at Corvex. They were building the warships that had destroyed New Horizon. It was time to return the favor. The Council believed they had crushed humanity's spirit. They believed humans would surrender or at least hide behind their defenses. They were wrong. Humanity was not hiding. Humanity was preparing to strike back harder than anyone expected. The hunted were about to become the hunters. Captain Dayun Choi looked at the 12 ships under her command. They were the newest vessels in the human fleet, fresh from the shipyards. Each one was equipped with the Ghost Drive system. They were called Wraith-class frigates, and they were built for one purpose: silent raids deep in enemy territory. Her target was the Corvex shipyards. Intelligence from Lieutenant Yoon showed that 40% of the Council's new warships were built there. The facility was massive, with 17 capital ships under construction. It was also heavily defended. 30 Threxian warships patrolled the system, along with defense platforms and automated weapons. In any normal attack, 12 ships against 30 would be suicide. But this was not a normal attack. The Ghost Drive would make them invisible until the moment they struck. Commander Hyunwoo Kang had also developed a cyber weapon specifically for this mission. It would disable the shipyard's defense systems when activated. "Remember the plan," Captain Choi said to her strike group over the secure channel. "We jump in at maximum Ghost Drive stealth. Kang will hit their computers first. When their defenses go down, we attack the shipyards directly, destroy everything under construction. Then we get out before they can organize a response. Speed and precision. That is how we win." The 12 ships jumped into hyperspace. The journey to Corvex took 2 days. During that time, the crews prepared. They checked weapon systems. They ran simulations. They thought about New Horizon and the 400,000 dead. This was not just a military mission. This was justice. When the strike group arrived at Corvex, the Ghost Drive activated automatically. The ships became invisible to sensors, radar, and even visual detection. They looked like empty space. The Threxian patrol ships passed within a few kilometers and saw nothing. The defense platforms scanned continuously but detected no threats. The human ships moved through the defenses like ghosts. Commander Kang sat at his station on the lead ship and worked his magic. His fingers moved across the keyboard faster than anyone thought possible. He found the entry point into the shipyard's network and began his attack. The Threxian computer systems were old and secure, designed over centuries. But they were not designed to handle human AI working with human creativity. It took Kang 8 minutes to break through. Once inside, he moved like lightning. He shut down the defense grid. He disabled communication systems. He locked weapons on all the patrol ships. The Threxians suddenly found themselves blind and helpless. Their screens went dark. Their weapons would not fire. They did not understand what was happening. "Defense grid is down," Kang reported calmly. "All yours, Captain." "Attack," Captain Choi ordered. The 12 Wraith-class frigates dropped their stealth and opened fire. Missiles and energy beams streaked across space. The shipyards exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Ships under construction broke apart. Construction platforms collapsed. Fuel depots detonated in massive fireballs. In the first 30 seconds, 7 capital ships were destroyed. The Threxian defenders tried to respond. But without their computers, they had to aim manually. By the time they got their weapons working, the human ships were already moving to new positions. The frigates were fast and agile. They dodged incoming fire and struck from different angles. It was chaos for the defenders. Captain Choi's ship targeted the main construction facility. It was a massive structure, 5 kilometers long, where the largest Threxian dreadnoughts were built. She launched her entire missile payload at its reactor core. The missiles hit perfectly. The reactor went critical and exploded with the force of a small sun. The entire facility disintegrated. The other human ships continued their assault. They destroyed fuel storage tanks, ammunition depots, and command centers. Everywhere they looked, something was exploding. In 15 minutes, the Corvex shipyards were completely destroyed. 17 capital ships gone. Hundreds of smaller vessels destroyed. The primary construction facility reduced to debris. "Time to leave," Captain Choi said. "All ships activate Ghost Drive and jump out." The human ships vanished from sensors just as the Threxian defenders were finally organizing a counterattack. One human destroyer had taken damage to its engines and could not jump. The crew evacuated in escape pods before the ship was destroyed. Every other vessel made it out safely. As the human ships jumped back to friendly space, Captain Choi allowed herself a small smile. They had done it. They had struck deep into enemy territory and dealt a devastating blow. But more importantly, they had sent a message. Humanity was not defeated. Humanity was fighting back. The destruction of Corvex sent shockwaves through the Council. High Counselor Vekroth called an emergency session. The council chamber was filled with angry voices and accusations. How had humans penetrated their defenses? How had they destroyed such a critical facility? Why had the patrol ships been unable to stop them? Vekroth tried to maintain control, but for the first time he looked uncertain. "This is a temporary setback," he insisted. "We still have superior numbers. We still have more ships. One lost shipyard does not change the outcome of this war." But several council members disagreed. The Kelthera representative stood up and spoke. The Kelthera were a peaceful trading species who had always preferred negotiation over war. "This war was a mistake from the beginning," the representative said. "We were told humanity was weak and would surrender quickly. Instead, they are striking at our most valuable facilities. How many more losses will we accept before we admit we were wrong?" "Silence," Vekroth roared. "Anyone who questions the council's decisions is a traitor." But the damage was done. Other council members began whispering among themselves. Doubts spread. 3 species announced they would withdraw their fleets from offensive operations. They would defend their own territories but would not attack human space. Vekroth threatened them with sanctions, but the threats felt empty now. Ambassador Jihai Ro, who had been operating from a hidden outpost since escaping Valdris Prime, heard about these developments. She immediately reached out to the Kelthera through secret channels. She offered a meeting to discuss possible peace terms. The Kelthera agreed. It was the first crack in the Council's unity. Meanwhile, Vekroth decided to escalate. If humanity wanted war, he would give them war beyond anything they imagined. He proposed creating a Grand Armada, the largest fleet ever assembled. Every Council species would contribute ships. Together, they would have over 800 warships. This force would be unstoppable. The Council approved the plan, though some members voted reluctantly. Over the next 3 months, ships gathered at Valdris Prime. The Grand Armada took shape. It was an impressive sight. Hundreds of vessels from different species all united in one purpose. Or so they claimed. Back on Earth, news of the Corvex raid was celebrated. Captain Choi became a hero. Her face appeared on every news broadcast. Children played games pretending to be her. Songs were written about the raid. But Choi herself felt uncomfortable with the attention. She knew the war was far from over. Admiral Park promoted her to Commodore and gave her command of the first strike group. This was an elite formation of the newest and best ships. Commander Kang became her second in command. Together, they would lead humanity's offensive operations. The Council is preparing something big, Lieutenant Yoon reported during a strategy meeting. Our intelligence suggests they are assembling a massive fleet. They plan to attack the Arcturus system. Arcturus was critical. It was a jump point that served as a gateway to the Sol system. If the Council captured Arcturus, they could attack Earth directly. Admiral Park studied the tactical maps and frowned. How many ships are they bringing? Intelligence estimates 800 warships, Yoon said quietly. The room fell silent. Earth had maybe 200 combat-ready ships. The math was simple and terrible. They could not win a direct battle. Then we do not fight a direct battle, Admiral Park said. We turn Arcturus into a trap. We use every advantage we have. Mines, drones, hidden ships, electronic warfare. We make them pay for every kilometer they advance. Commodore Choi nodded. It will be brutal. We will lose ships. Yes, Admiral Park agreed. But we will make them lose more. And when it is over, they will think twice before attacking us again. The preparations began immediately. Engineers worked day and night to turn the Arcturus system into a fortress. They deployed thousands of automated defense drones. They planted minefields throughout the system. They positioned ghost drive ships in hidden locations. They created false sensor readings to confuse the enemy. When the preparations were complete, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his command ship and looked at the tactical display. Everything was ready. Now they just had to wait for the Council's Grand Armada to arrive. It would be the largest battle in human history, and humanity's survival depended on winning it. The Council believed their superior numbers guaranteed victory. They were about to learn a hard lesson. Numbers meant nothing if you could not use them effectively. And in warfare, humans had always excelled at finding ways to win against impossible odds. Arcturus would prove that once again. The Grand Armada arrived at Arcturus like a storm. 800 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They filled the sensor screens with their presence. From a distance, they looked unstoppable. High Counselor Vekroth commanded the fleet personally from his massive flagship. He was confident this would be the final battle. After today, the path to Earth would be open. But as the Armada moved deeper into the system, strange things began to happen. The first wave of ships triggered hidden mines. Explosions rippled through the formation. 20 vessels were destroyed in the first 5 minutes. The fleet tried to adjust, but then automated drones appeared from nowhere. Thousands of them. They were small and fast, equipped with explosives. They swarmed the larger ships like angry insects. Commander Hyunwoo Kang watched from a hidden position and smiled. His cyber weapons were already active, infiltrating Council communications. Enemy ships began receiving false orders. Some turned left when they should turn right. Others slowed down or sped up at the wrong times. The perfect formation became chaos. Commodore Da-Un Choi commanded the first strike group from her position behind a small moon. She had 30 ships with ghost drive stealth. They waited patiently while the enemy fleet struggled with mines and drones. When the moment was right, she gave the order. All ships drop stealth and attack their command vessels. Target their communications and leadership. Make them blind. The human ships appeared suddenly in the middle of the Council fleet. They struck at the command ships, the vessels coordinating the Armada's movements. Missiles and energy weapons found their targets. 3 command ships exploded. 4 more were crippled. The carefully planned Council attack fell apart completely. The battle lasted 3 days. It was brutal and exhausting for both sides. The Council fleet had superior numbers, but they could not use them effectively. Ships collided with each other. Weapons locked onto friendly vessels by mistake. Communication was impossible with Kang's cyber attacks disrupting their networks. Human forces hit hard and fast, then disappeared before the enemy could respond. Admiral Tae-Young Park coordinated the defense from his command ship, moving pieces across the battlefield like a chess master. He sent ships where they were needed most. He recognized weak points in the enemy formation and exploited them ruthlessly. On the third day, High Counselor Vekroth finally admitted defeat. His fleet had lost 237 ships. Another 100 were badly damaged. His perfect armada was broken. He ordered a retreat, though it felt like surrender. The surviving council ships jumped out of the system in disorder. The human fleet had lost 41 ships. It was painful, but compared to what they had inflicted on the enemy, it was a victory. More importantly, they had held Arcturus. Earth was still safe. The Council's best attempt to crush humanity had failed. News of the battle spread across the galaxy quickly. Species that had been neutral suddenly paid attention. The Kelthera formally withdrew from the war. The Orathi and Belkarans followed. They announced they would no longer fight against humanity. Some even offered to help Earth with supplies and intelligence. High Counselor Vekroth tried to stop the defections. He threatened sanctions and military action against any species that betrayed the Council. But his threats were empty now. 3 more species withdrew their support. The Grand Armada had been the Council's greatest strength. Now it was fragmenting. Ambassador Ji Ro seized the opportunity. She had been working quietly with sympathetic Council members for months. Now she went public. She released data that Lieutenant Yoon's agents had stolen from Valdris Prime. The data proved everything. It showed the conspiracy. It showed how Vekroth had manipulated intelligence about Taros 7. It showed the planned betrayal of humanity. The revelations caused an uproar across Council space. Public protests erupted on multiple worlds. Citizens demanded answers. How could their leaders have started a war based on lies? How many of their people had died for Vekroth's ambitions? The pressure on the Council became enormous. Several Council members called for Vekroth's removal. They wanted peace negotiations with Earth, but Vekroth refused to step down. He purged his opponents from the Council chambers. He arrested protest leaders. He became increasingly desperate and authoritarian. The Council effectively split into 2 factions, those loyal to Vekroth and those seeking peace. Admiral Park recognized that the war had entered a new phase. The Council was fracturing. Now was the time to push harder. He called a meeting with his senior commanders. Commodore Choi, Commander Kang, and Lieutenant Yoon all attended. "We have been defending successfully," Admiral Park said. "But defense alone will not end this war. We need to go on the offensive. We need to liberate worlds suffering under Council control. We need to show that we fight for freedom, not revenge." "What is your first target?" Commodore Choi asked. "Taros 7, Admiral Park replied. "The moon where this whole war started. Intelligence shows the Drenari colonists there are suffering. The Council has been taxing them heavily to fund the war. Some are starving. We will liberate them and provide aid. It will send a powerful message the mission was approved." Commodore Choi led a humanitarian fleet to Taros 7. The Council had minimal defenses there, expecting no attack. The human ships arrived and quickly secured the moon. But instead of occupying it, they brought food, medicine, and construction materials. Human engineers helped rebuild damaged infrastructure. Human doctors treated the sick. Human teachers helped reopen schools. The Drenari colonists, who had been told humans were monsters, saw the truth. They welcomed the humans as liberators. The Drenari leader, an elderly female named Kelra, made a public statement. "We were told humanity would destroy us," she said, her voice broadcast across the galaxy. "Instead, they saved us." The Council lied about Taros 7 from the beginning. They tried to make humans attack us to start this war. Now humans have come not as conquerors, but as friends. "We stand with Earth," the statement was powerful. It undermined Council propaganda completely. Other species began questioning what they had been told about humanity. More public support shifted away from the war. Meanwhile, Commodore Choi continued her offensive operations. She led raids on Council supply convoys. She destroyed military facilities but avoided civilian casualties. Every operation was designed to weaken Vekroth's war machine, while showing humanity's moral superiority. The most daring operation was against Threxar, the Threxian homeworld. Choi did not attack the planet directly. Instead, she blockaded it. Human ships surrounded the system and prevented supply ships from entering or leaving. The blockade was not total. Civilian vessels carrying food and medicine were allowed through, but military supplies were stopped. The blockade sent a clear message. Humanity could reach anyone, anywhere. Even High Counselor Vekroth was not safe in his own home system. The psychological impact was enormous. Threxian citizens began demanding their government end the war. By the one-year anniversary of the war, the situation had completely reversed. Earth had gone from desperate survival to strategic dominance. Human fleets operated freely in what had been Council space. Multiple species had allied with humanity. The Council's military forces were scattered and demoralized, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Over 30,000 human military personnel had died. 5 colonies had been damaged or destroyed. The Sol system still operated under wartime rationing. Resources were stretched thin. Admiral Park felt the weight of every decision, every life lost under his command. Commodore Choi struggled with survivor's guilt. She had lost several ships under her command. Good people had died following her orders. She won battles, but each victory felt hollow when she thought about the cost. Commander Kang carried scars from combat operations. He had been injured during a boarding action and still walked with a slight limp. But he continued working, developing new tactics and technologies. Ambassador Rowe worked tirelessly for peace. She met with representatives from multiple species, building a coalition that could eventually replace the corrupt council. She negotiated trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. She laid the groundwork for a new galactic order based on equality rather than domination. High Counselor Vekroth, isolated and desperate, began planning one final operation. If he could not defeat humanity through conventional warfare, he would use the Council's ultimate weapon. The Annihilator was a massive dreadnought built centuries ago as a deterrent. It carried weapons capable of destroying entire planets. It had never been used because its power was too terrible. But Vekroth was beyond reason now. He believed destroying Earth would restore his authority and end the rebellion against his leadership. He ordered the Annihilator prepared for deployment. The target was obvious: Earth itself. Lieutenant Yoon's intelligence network discovered the plan within days. She immediately reported to Admiral Park. When he heard the news, his face went pale. The Annihilator could destroy Earth before any defense could stop it. Everything they had fought for could end in one terrible moment. "We need to stop that ship," Admiral Park said. "Whatever it takes. Call back every vessel we have. Earth will make its final stand." The Annihilator moved through space like death itself. It was 5 kilometers long, covered in weapons that could crack planets. 150 Council warships escorted it. High Counselor Vekroth commanded the fleet from the bridge of the massive dreadnought. He believed this was his moment of triumph. Soon Earth would be nothing but debris and ash. The journey to Sol would take 3 weeks. Earth had 3 weeks to prepare for the end of everything. Admiral Tae-Young Park called an emergency meeting of all human commanders. The mood was grim. Evacuating Earth was impossible. 14 billion people could not be moved in 3 weeks. They would have to fight. But could they win against such overwhelming power? "We defend our home," Commodore Dayun Choi said firmly. "We did not come this far to surrender now. Every ship, every weapon, every person who can fight. We throw everything we have at that monster." Admiral Park nodded. "Recall every human vessel to Sol. Contact our allies. Ask them to send whatever they can spare. We will turn the Sol system into the most heavily defended position in the galaxy." The call went out. Human ships from across the galaxy began their journey home. The Kelthera, Orathi, and Belkerans also answered. They sent their fleets to help defend Earth. If Earth fell, they knew their freedom would fall with it. Over 3 weeks, the Sol system transformed. Defense platforms were positioned around Earth, Mars, and every major installation. Automated weapons covered every approach vector. Thousands of mines were placed in strategic locations. The entire system became one vast weapon. Commander Hyun-Woo Kang worked without sleep, preparing cyber weapons and electronic warfare systems. Lieutenant Bora Yoon coordinated intelligence efforts, trying to find any weakness in the Annihilator's design. Ambassador Ji-Hee-ro made a final desperate appeal to moderate council members, begging them to stop Vekroth's madness. On Earth, civilians prepared for the worst. Children were evacuated to underground shelters. Volunteers joined militia units. Factories worked continuously producing weapons and ammunition. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew they might not survive. But nobody talked about surrender. When the preparations were complete, Admiral Park reviewed the numbers. 220 human ships, 50 allied vessels, hundreds of defense platforms, thousands of drones and automated weapons. It was impressive. But was it enough? Commodore Choi was given tactical command of the defense fleet. She studied the battle plan endlessly, looking for any advantage. The key was the Annihilator itself. If they could destroy it before it reached firing range of Earth, they could win. But the dreadnought was heavily armored and protected by its escort fleet. "We need to sacrifice everything to get through to that ship," she told her commanders. "Every other target is secondary. The escort fleet does not matter. Only the Annihilator matters. We throw everything we have at its reactor core." On the day the enemy arrived, Earth held its breath. The Annihilator and its escorts dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Immediately, the battle began. The first wave of automated drones attacked the escort fleet. Explosions filled space. The Council ships responded with overwhelming firepower, destroying hundreds of drones. But thousands more kept coming. The escorts were forced to slow down, dealing with the endless swarm. Commodore Choi launched her ships in coordinated strikes. They focused on the escort vessels, trying to separate them from the Annihilator. Commander Kang's cyber weapons disrupted enemy communications, creating confusion. Ships fired on each other by mistake. The careful Council formation began to break apart. But the Annihilator kept moving forward. Its massive shields absorbed weapon hits without visible damage. Its own weapons returned fire, destroying human ships with terrifying efficiency. A Titan-class battle carrier exploded in a flash of light. 3 destroyers were cut in half by energy beams. The casualties mounted quickly. For 6 hours, the battle raged. Space was filled with debris, explosions, and dying ships. Human forces fought with desperate courage. Allied vessels sacrificed themselves to protect Earth. But still the Annihilator advanced, getting closer to firing range with each passing minute. Admiral Park watched from his command ship, his face gray with exhaustion. They were losing. The Annihilator would soon be in position to fire its planet-killing weapons. Earth would die. Everything would be lost. Then Commodore Choi made her decision. She opened a private channel to Commander Kang. "Kang, evacuate the crew to escape pods. That is an order." Kang understood immediately what she planned. "No, we can find another way." "There is no other way," Choi said calmly. "Get everyone off the ship. You have 5 minutes." Kang wanted to argue, but he knew that tone. He had served with Choi for years. When she made up her mind, nothing could change it. He ordered the evacuation. Crew members ran to escape pods, confused but obedient. Kang was the last to leave, tears in his eyes. Commodore Choi sat alone on the bridge of the Indomitable. She took manual control of the ship and aimed it directly at the Annihilator. Then she activated the reactor overload. The ship would explode with the force of a small star. "This is Commodore Da-Yun Choi," she broadcast on all channels. "For Earth, for freedom, for everyone who comes after us." The Indomitable accelerated to full speed. Council ships tried to stop it, but they were too late. The human flagship struck the Annihilator directly at its reactor section. Both ships exploded in a blinding flash that lit up the entire solar system. The shockwave from the explosion disabled dozens of nearby vessels. The Annihilator, the Council's ultimate weapon, was destroyed. High Counselor Vekroth died in that explosion, his dreams of conquest ending in fire. The remaining Council fleet lost all coordination. Some ships tried to flee. Others surrendered. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. Earth was saved, but the cost was terrible. Admiral Park stood on his bridge and wept. 68 human ships were destroyed. Over 15,000 personnel were dead or missing. And Commodore Choi, one of the finest officers he had ever known, was gone. Commander Kang survived the evacuation, but he was devastated. He had lost his closest friend and commander. He had watched her sacrifice herself while he floated helplessly in an escape pod. The guilt would haunt him forever. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread. The Council's final attempt to destroy humanity had failed. Vekroth was dead. The Loyalist faction collapsed completely. Species that had remained neutral now openly supported Earth. The war was effectively over. A Kelthera patrol captured several fleeing Council ships. Among the prisoners was Vekroth's second-in-command, who had been on a different vessel during the battle. The Kelthera turned him over to human custody. Justice would be served. On Earth, people celebrated the victory but mourned the dead. Commodore Choi became a legend. Her final words were repeated everywhere. Children learned about her sacrifice in schools. Statues were erected in her memory. She had given her life to save Earth, and Earth would never forget. Admiral Park addressed the fleet and the planet. His voice was heavy with grief but also with pride. "We have won," he said. "But we have paid dearly for this victory. We will honor those who fell by building a better future. The war is over. Now we must win the peace." Commander Kang was promoted to Commodore and given command of the rebuilt First Strike Group. It was an honor he accepted reluctantly. He would have preferred to have his friend back. But he would honor her memory by continuing the fight for freedom. Lieutenant Yoon became Director of Intelligence Services. Her work during the war had been critical to victory. Now she would ensure that no future conspiracy could threaten humanity. Ambassador Rowe prepared for the peace conference. Representatives from across the galaxy would gather to build a new order. The corrupt council would be dissolved. A new government would be created, one based on equality and justice. It would be a long and difficult process, but it was necessary. Earth had been betrayed. Earth had been attacked. Earth had nearly been destroyed. But Earth had survived. And in surviving, humanity had proven something important to the entire galaxy. They had proven that courage, determination, and the will to fight for freedom could overcome any odds. The war was over. A new chapter was beginning, and humanity would face it not as victims but as equals. They had earned their place among the stars through blood and sacrifice. Now they would work to ensure that no species would ever suffer such betrayal again.